Hey everybody, how you doing? Take two. It's Leslie Plazz here for the Zazoo Plazz report, January 8th, 2023. Yeah, it's my second take, and it's also my second location. I was over there, and see if I can get the moon in. Look at the full moon. See it up there? So I was over there with my back to the woods, looking out that way at the moon, and realized I was facing east, which is, it's not my favored position. I'm supposed to face northwest, which is that way. So, it's tough to get the feng shui right, and with the Mercury retrograde and the Mars going forward and the so much pressure, which is the song for today. It's like the story of my life, man. Friday the 13th is on Friday, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. Freezing, but I made my clam chowder last night, but most of it is gone because the kid found out about it. Even my husband had a little cup of it. He's like, "Mom, why is it brown?" Because I made it in the pressure cooker. So I put the bacon in, and it gets all brown on the bottom, and if you don't get rid of that, then the whole thing, but it tastes good. It tastes bacony, and then I put in celery and onions and the potatoes and the what do I use? Clam juice, and then you put in your all your other stuff. The clams go last. You pressure cook the clams and all the spices and stuff, and then after that you smush, you turn the pot on, and you smush all the potatoes, and then you put the clams in and the cream, and thicken it a little with some what do you call that stuff? Cornstarch or arrowroot. That's what I use, arrowroot. And it's and then you just stir it up, and you're good. And I buy these little teeny weeny little square saltines, and it's so comforting. But it's almost gone. So I have some Italian sausage tortellini soup. I freeze, when I make soup, I'll freeze a little bit for myself, and then I'll put the rest in the freezer for those people, the people I live with. But I take care of myself first, because they can deal for themselves. But that's what I've come to, and I just wanted to share that. I used to put myself, I used to be under pressure for the things that I do well, right? So this is sort of the topic for today's Zazoo report. It's all in kind of a big soup. The song of the day is, maybe the week. I woke up with this song in my head, and it's always the way, I got interrupted a little with the holidays, but Sundays I usually wake up with a song, and it's pressure. It's like when you've got a fly or a bug that's trying to get out, and it's right, and then you let it out. It's kind of like that. Sometimes when you're living a creative life, you have periods of pressure, and this is the case most of the time for me. I've got all this stuff in me that wants to get out, and if I don't let it out, through speaking like this or writing or something, it bottles up, and I want to explode, and it'll come out in other ways if I don't creatively release it. Just like when you make soup in the pressure cooker. When I grew up, I have a new one now, but my parents had this old pressure cooker. And I remember well being in the kitchen at times, holidays or whatever, they'd make mashed potatoes. And my dad was always in charge of the pressure cooker, right? He's a Taurus. He'd put the potatoes in there and water or something, and it had it was a pot, it had a silver lid on it. And then there would be a little thing on the top, and he had to like, you knew when it was ready because the little thing would start like, I don't know, the steam would start coming out, and then he'd tell me to stay back. He'd say, stay, get back. He'd warn me, right? Stay back. This thing is gonna blow, But and then he'd gently release it, and then it was great. And then he could go in and mash the potatoes and put the milk in and the butter or sour cream or whatever. And then we had good potatoes. But first, the pressure was on to cook the potatoes. This was before, like, we used to make them in the microwave or whatever. I remember as a kid, my parents' kitchen was pressure. It was pressure for me. I used to like to get up to my room, take the pressure off. Even to still, when I entertained, I like to get everything kind of going, like in the pressure cooker, and then escape. Let the steam out, and then kind of, get perspective, and then come back. Some people thrive being in that environment all the time. Certain people are, like, if you study human design, you have different types. I'm a mountain. I thrive by escaping, either to an upstairs room or, I've always worked on like the third floor or above of places. I've lived, in apartments where I'm on the top floor. Not the very, it doesn't have to be the very top, but pretty close to the top. I like to get a perspective, As a kid, I always wanted like a tree house, the closest I could get is we had one of those swings. Sometimes I'd climb up, go put my feet on either side and kind of swing. But I like to get I like to hiking, going to mountains. And then I can come back and some people, they're kitchen types, they like to be in the middle of everything all the time. Gordon Ramsay, I don't know. Those people, chefs, those types. They like to be in the thick of everything and they thrive on it. And they never seem to need to take a break. Other people, like my husband, he's a market. He likes going to the supermarket, poking around and talking to people, and he's the kind of person who doesn't, likes to do the checkout with the real person and talk, not me. My other son, he's a valley type. So I guess that means like, he likes to be places like where there's a river going through and there's gently sloping hills, and we can talk things over with people, and that works for him. He's a computer programmer. So he, the digital river. But anyway, so pressure. So pressure, it's not a bad thing. This song, when it first came out, I loved it because it kind of, the sound of it annoyed some people, right? Da-da, 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 da-da. But I loved it. I used to play the organ, da-da-da-da-da. And at the time, that synth sound was, coming really in the early 80s. 1982 it came out, September. And it reminds me of high school. I mean, the Nylon Curtain, I had it on a cassette. Or did I have the album? I think I had the cassette. So he talks about this song. And, I'm going to put a link. I forgot about this. There was something called MTV Night School, where it was like a half an hour show where they used to, it was like a bunch of kids in the audience, like teenagers, people my age at that time, asking, artists questions. And Billy Joel was on right around, to promote this new album and the song Pressure. And he talked about how he, how he was under pressure to write. And he said he just wasn't, he was halfway through his album, and sometimes you get stuck. he was putting pressure on himself, or maybe the record company was, he is at a point in his career where he wasn't starving anymore, so he didn't have that pressure to survive. So he's gone up. When we, initially, as humans, as a species, we have that pressure. The first thing is to survive, right? If you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you can't write songs, but that you have to get to that point. And then when you get above that point, it's like, okay, now, you're evolved. Now that he's had some success, he has, pressure he has the responsibility to write an album because he's promised the record company, I gotta, and he's got deadlines, right? So, it's kind of like that going on in your head, right? It's the head. It's putting pressure. And he's sitting there, and he said to the kids when he was on this show, he's like, yeah, he said, and so his secretary came in while he was going through this, probably sitting there, like in the video, with all these scenes flashing in front of his eyes, he's thinking, and I talk about this in the Zazoo Plazz book. And it's funny, I have a story where it's my first day of school, and it's 1979, and I got that I gotta make it to class on time, and all this, my life is flashing before my eyes, and it's if I don't do this, then this will happen, and then that'll happen, and then so he's probably sitting there going, if I don't write this album, then I'm gonna then the record company's gonna drop me, and then this is gonna happen, and then I'm gonna starve, and then I'm not gonna be alive, and da. You see how that happens? So that the score of the record of the song reflects that internal thing we can get on sometimes, and the very what we need to do is just let it go. Take a deep breath, let it out, and give up, and just let it go. Because then you're free. Then you're free to accept what comes. But I just noticed all that wood over there. There's all this, somebody's cutting trees. He said his secretary, came in and said, gee, looks like you're under a lot of pressure there. And he's like, that's it, thank you. So he said he gives her credit, but of course she doesn't get the publishing rights or any of that money. Poor secretary. Anyway, but, okay, so what does this have to do with Dia de los Reyes, the Magi Day of the, Three Kings Day, and the Magi, and the astrologers, and the star, and the frankincense and myrrh, and I'm going to tie it all together, the way we do here. Oh yeah. So, in other words, I want to finish with Billy Joel first. How does this all have to do with, all right, so, it seems to me that when he was, you gotta put yourself back in the times that he was writing this song, okay? It was the Cold War. There was a different kind of pressure going on, at this, and of course he's going to be influenced by the times, right? And of course, a lot of what he addressed in that album, Nylon Curtain, was the, anxiety, life challenges, for his generation mostly, but he was addressing his own generation as well as the one behind him, which was ours, Gen X, right? We were the kids coming up. And, he talked a lot in that album, I remember, about what he calls the fleeting American dreams. Oh, all grown up, no place to go, life challenges. And that it affected me on a very deep level. The whole album, Um, and I just said that myself. Now that I'm a little older, older than he was when he wrote it, but old enough to have gone through some of what he talks about, is all dressed up and no place to go. Yeah. Um, you know, that is where we've come to, hasn't it? Isn't it? I feel like, you get to that point where you can, you know, house yourself, feed yourself. You're able to do all the basic things, and you're in good shape. And then what? It's always my question. And then what, right? And that's where the spiritual questions come in, right? All dressed up and no place to go, which means that there's just so far you can go on this earth plane. You've got to rise higher, right? And that is the existential crisis. That is the pressure, right? What are we really here for? If this is it, yes, that can be very demoralizing, Psych 1, Psych 2, what does it mean? In other words, you've got your degrees. You think you've got all the answers, but guess what? You haven't even started. Sesame Street, all right? Channel 13 is perfect. It's Friday the 13th this week. Channel 13. Childhood. Those of us who spend our childhood in front of the TV watching Sesame Street, we learn our ABCs, but what it really means, I think, is the real answers. We were probably closer to the real meaning of life back when we were kids, watching Sesame Street, or even before that, right? He's got this kid going through the TV like the poltergeist girl, help, in other words, I think the imagery there is that we've bought in, we've been, us as a generation, they were heavily marketing, to the kids. We were probably the most heavily marketed generation in the 70s, right? When we were growing up, even probably more than the 60s, I would guess. We probably spent more time watching TV. And, you got to get this and you got to get that. You got to, I don't know. I think I probably learned more from Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street about how to, what was really important. Who are the people in your neighborhood? Who are the, it's that basic. It's that receptivity that you have when you're a child. That's what you need in order to create. Where you get pressure is when you're trying to conform to, oh, I have to be at this place at this time. We got the three wise men. Well, we gotta. We've been told there's something amazing happened. They followed the stars. They were astrologers, right? But that's the right kind of pressure, right? Nobody told them. They got messages and dreams, and they listened to their dreams. And that is what led them to Christ, the Christ child. It's what led them home and away from Herod, because they got a message in a dream that he was up to no good, and they were, so they followed the dream, and their reality became, safer. In other words, sometimes you have, people will tell you, Herod was telling them, oh, I want to see, he had his own designs, right? He had his own, quest for power, his, whatever. He was threatened. His power was threatened. His position was threatened. So how often do people try to dictate to us? Say you're working for somebody, and it's kind of like a Herod type, right? You've got pressure because they're under the gun, so to speak. They're on, their back's up against the wall. okay, I need to stay in power. I need this, you know, this amount of money. I need da 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 da. So it's your problem. No, it's not. So the Magi, right? They followed they followed the star. I found this the other day. We cleared away all the Christmas stuff, and I said, "What's this?" I said to my husband. Oh, he said, "Oh, yeah, that it broke off." So when I used to teach CCD to my kids, class, and I had a friend, uh, DS, lovely friend. She gave me this crystal angel, and the arms were going like this, right? And so this little star was at the very point of her arms. We used to keep her, and then she was hollow in the bottom. It's horrible. This is where the humor comes in. And she was totally, hollow. She was like sort of like a plastic thing. It's a lightweight, but fragile, see-through. See, and you could stick her on the top of the tree. But we already had an angel, so I put her on the end of the mantle next to the tree, looking outside. And something happened. Somebody jostled something. I don't know. She took a nosedive one day, and the little star, she hit the brick fireplace, and the little star broke off. So we just, we kept putting her up there year after year without the star, just, her hands. So my husband finally said, "You know what?" He said, "Do you want to keep her or not? Because we're cleaning out a lot of stuff. We're moving on." But he said, "Oh, I'll fix this. I'll put the star back on the angel." And I said, "Yeah, let's give her to somebody, because he can fix it so that it's perfect. Somebody else might use the guidance." So I thought, yeah, that's perfect. Perfect to show in this week's Zazoo report. Following the star. What's your star? What's your North Star? Each of us has a north node in our chart. It's the nodes of the moon, right? The south is where we've been, and the north is where we're going. So, and then the Magi, they literally followed the north. So, it's imagery, but where's your north node? Are you feeling pressure because you're chasing after the wrong things? You're not free. If you have to, nothing kills creativity, faster than a deadline. For me, anyway. I once, well, of course I did. I had an opportunity to, be a reporter on a daily newspaper, and I aced all the tests except for the one where you have to, write a story in 2 minutes or something, and I just froze, and so because my writing, it's spontaneous, it comes like that, like a lightning strike, and I can't do it on demand. Somebody tells me, write a story. I guarantee what you get is not going to be my best work. All right. So this is what happened to Billy Joel, right? If somebody tells you, it's like gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The myrrh is perfume, right? But it's bitter. It's kind of like what they used to use. They use it for, burial. It's, getting the body ready for burial and medicinal purposes and a bunch of other things. But, it's like, it's funny that myrrh is, and that's from a Greek myth too. I'll get into that, and maybe I'll post some stuff about that. Bottom line is, nobody could make me. I didn't get that job. I didn't get any of the reporter jobs that I ended up being a freelancer where I had like 2 or 3 weeks to do a piece, and then it was a quality piece, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's great work." We need to In other words, but the guy, and I ended up writing 54 articles for my local newspaper here, and the editor spent 2 hours with me. He says, "You've got some great ideas." He's like, "Can you write for us?" But, he said, "You're not going to be the kind of reporter who goes out to the town hall, meeting and writes something in, an hour." And the same thing, with some of these freelance opportunities. Anybody could do that stuff. Anybody could just, meet deadlines. But he said, your ability, your talents lie in, well, he didn't say it per se, but I came to realize that doing things with other people's sense of urgency was not going to cut it for me, right? I have to go by my own inner urgency, which is kind of like the Magi, right? They're not going to go by Herod's sense of urgency, right? That's how you know you're not the authority. You're not going by your own, marching to the beat of your own drum, right? That's how I knew. I'm trying to, write these articles under pressure, and it was crap, and I knew it was crap because it was somebody else's idea of timing, of content, of, what I should be doing. All right? So the heck with that. So, yeah. So if I think, I'm not going to draw any morals on this. See what you come up with. Listen to the song. And the other day, it was my mom's birthday, January 6th, and a good friend of mine, J-A-T, happy birthday. Yeah, so the January 6th is the Epiphany. The Feast of the Three Kings is also called the Epiphany. And, maybe it's my cosmic rationale here, but, I think that we have to be open to those epiphanies. We have to make way for them. We have to figure out what our own, sometimes, turn off the GPS, use your inner GPS, right? I used to love to, my husband would laugh, say you use GPS or Google, whatever, maps on your phone, and then at a certain point, I would just shut it off, or I would just try to mess it up, say, recalibrating. That's when they used to do that. She used to say, recalibrating, right? I used to love to mess up the GPS. I don't think they do that anymore. They just, the stupid technology just goes boink, 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 boink. But there used to be a real lady that I could, kind of tick off, piss her off. That would make my day, just to mess with her, just to doink. Now it just goes doink, 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 doink. Anyway, so maybe if the wise men were around today, they would have to recalibrate. Oh, you've got to go this way. Doink, doink, doink. So, sometimes you gotta mess things up for other people. Not intentionally, but in a graceful way to follow your own heart, right? And not everybody's gonna be happy about it. Too bad. Oh God. Anyway, that's the Zazoo Plazz retort for this week. I'm hanging out, looking at the moon and the stars, enjoying the potential of another week of creativity. What can you? Are you under pressure? Remember, think about a volcano, right? Right before it's going to blow. But then, that's how the Earth was created, right? Great explosions. Stars exploded and you were born eons ago. So, you know, it's all good. If it's ready to blow, let it blow. Just get out of the way. Let it, whatever's gonna explode, let it go. Anyway, until next week, I'll leave you with that. Have a lucky Friday the 13th, and let it all flow. Let it come in. Talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.